My distinguished colleagues who have spoken this afternoon point out a truth that is impossible to refute, which is at the rate that the federal government is spending, we will have acquired $15 trillion of debt by the end of this year. That's a lot of money. It's requiring a lot of interest payment. That interest payment is only going to grow larger in the coming years. The Obama administration is already predicting that by the end of this decade, we'll be paying $1 trillion a year just to service the interest on our national debt. To put that in perspective, that's more than we spend on Social Security in an entire year, more than we spend on Medicare and Medicaid combined in an entire year, more than we spend on national defense in an entire year. I actually believe that 10 years is putting it optimistically. I think that day is coming much sooner. For that reason, I believe this body needs to pass a budget that balances. The problem has been this body has refused to do this. And every time we proceed with the idea that, well, we'll cut so many billions of dollars over the next 10 years, or every time that we adopt statutory spending caps, as we did with the Gramm-Rudman-Hollings Act almost 30 years ago, as we did with the PAYGO rules, Congress has treated those as something that Congress can exempt itself out of. Congress has become a walking, breathing waiver unto itself. The problem is that we, as a legislative body, cannot bind future Congresses. We can legislate. We can appropriate only for this Congress. And so our commitment now to save later isn't binding, unless, of course, we adopt an amendment to the U.S. Constitution that will bind future Congresses. That's why I've said I will oppose any and every attempt to raise the debt limit until such time as Congress has passed out of this body and presented to the states for ratification a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution, one that would require a two-thirds supermajority vote to authorize Congress to spend more than it takes in any given year and to spend more than 18% of gross domestic product in any given year. We cannot continue in perpetuity to rely on this kind of deficit spending. This will hurt every single federal program, whether you are most concerned on the one hand about preserving our ability to provide for our national defense, or on the other hand, if you're most concerned about preserving our entitlement programs. You ought to want a balanced budget amendment. You ought to be unwilling, as I am, to raise the debt limit until that amendment has been passed out by this body and by the House of Representatives and submitted to the states for ratification. Thank you, Madam President.